Let's go ahead and get started in respect of our speaker's time. We do look forward to hearing from Minoo Mehrotra today. Welcome to the Connections Food Safety Lunch and Learn webinar series. Again, we are going to be hearing from North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, their food program. And just to remind everyone that this webinar series is really part of a larger project. Thanks, Kate. That project being what we call an educational capacity building project. So for one, we want to share the knowledge among many experts out there in the food safety field. But this indeed is a 3-year partnership with not only NC State individuals, particularly those in extension, but also NCDA&T State University. And keep in mind that this webinar series is only one objective of this broader USDA funded project. We are in process of developing what we call a food safety repository. Basically, that will be a food safety website where you can go and find what we hope is a one-stop shop for knowing the training that's out there in terms of food safety in North Carolina, as well as those resources, food safety plan templates, and also, I think even more importantly, finding the right person to connect with. So these webinars serve as an opportunity to share information, but also share about those individuals who are who do this, for their day-to-day job. Keep in mind that this is the third webinar in a series. Our next webinar coming up will be May 3rd. Feel free to register on our extension website, and we certainly look forward to your participation. I'm going to move it to the next slide, and Kate, if you could share those logistics with us.
Thank you. So because we do want to have some sort of interaction, especially maybe at the end with a Q&A session, we are going to ask if you'll please mute your speaker while Minoo is presenting. If you have questions and you just want to get them out there, go ahead, put them in the Q&A chat at the bottom of the Zoom, and we will address those either during the webinar or in our Q&A session. Feel free to have your cameras off, save on that bandwidth. And then we will have some QR codes like you saw on our previous slide. So if you'd like to have your phone out for those QR codes for some resources, feel free to be ready to snap that photo. So without any further waiting, like Lynette mentioned, we're very, very very glad to welcome Minoo Mehrotra. She's the Food Compliance Supervisor for the North Carolina Department of Ag and their food program. She is located centrally here in Raleigh. We do have the Food Compliance Office phone number there where you can reach her and her entire team that she works with. And this QR code that you see over on the left-hand side of the screen, that's going to take you to the Department of Agriculture's website where you can find some great resources from them. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Minoo, I'm going to hand it over to you to share yours and start our presentation this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, let me see. Is everyone able to see?
Yes, it looks wonderful.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So during the presentation, I'm going to keep the camera off, but let me just reintroduce myself. So happy Friday. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation, which is part of the Food Safety Lunch and Learn webinar series. I am Minoo Mehrotra, and I'm with the Food and Drug Protection Division. And today I will just give a brief overview of our commercial food inspections that we conduct on behalf of Department of Agriculture. So I will begin. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see your
Yes.
screen.
Oh, you can. Okay, great. Yeah. Let me see how to move that because that's what. Give me 1 second. So June 7th, I don't know if you know, it is observed as World Food Safety Day every year. And I agree with what the World Health Organization said they stated in 2023 that food safety is a shared responsibility. There's a role for everyone. We in the government as regulators, you in the food industry as producers, processors, packers, responsible for distribution and transportation of food, as well as the consumers. So in current times, the spotlight is on the importance of monitoring and addressing food safety issues. Our goal, everyone's goal, is to prevent foodborne illnesses and protect public health. So the task is to prevent adulterated and misbranded foods in the marketplace. And food products that reach the consumers, they must be safe, wholesome, healthy, and properly labeled. So I want to share with you that CDC reported in a data that millions of people get sick and thousands get hospitalized or even die every year due to foodborne illnesses. This is a significant public health problem, but it is largely preventable. So Congress enacted the Food Safety Modernization Act, and it was passed, it was signed in 2011, and the FSMA, it amended the existing Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And what FSMA is all about is it has shifted the focus from responding to foodborne illnesses and outbreaks to actually preventing them. So having a more proactive approach to food safety. Human food facilities registered with the FDA must implement a written plan that identifies food safety hazards and outlines appropriate preventive controls. So basically, instead of spending thousands of dollars in medical care, why not put a little bit extra responsibility on the producers and the processors to produce safe food? And how would they do that? They would do that by implementing a systematic and risk-based approach. So in this bullet point, you may have seen a phrase that says, food facilities registered with the FDA. So I put it as a question, you might wonder which facilities must register with FDA. So it is a requirement that if you have more wholesale business than retail, then you must register with FDA. And remember, retail is when you're producing products to sell directly to consumers, and wholesale is when you are selling your products to another business. So remember that when you conduct wholesale business operations, food operations, you lose control of your product, right? So it is so meaningful that you apply those, you identify the food safety hazard and apply those preventive controls. So FDA actually finalized several rules to implement FSMA, recognizing that that ensuring the safety of the food supply is indeed a shared responsibility among many different points in the global supply chain for both human food and animal food. So here we're just going to concentrate on one of the preventive controls, on one of the rules, FSMA rule, that is the FSMA rule for preventive controls for human food. So the long name is Current Good Manufacturing Practice, Hazard Analysis, and Risk-Based Preventive Controls for Human Food. The short name, we'll just call it 21 CFR 117. Now, the 117s they comprise 7 subparts. And, many of you who have been affiliated with the food industry, you already know that the good manufacturing practices was always a part of food operations, right? So that is now incorporated in a subpart, in subpart B, and it applies to all retail and wholesale food operations. The other subparts, it depends on the operation whether some or all subparts will apply. Another thing I want to emphasize that risk-based preventive controls will not create a zero-risk system for manufacturing, processing, packing, or holding food. Rather, what it does is that risk-based preventive controls are designed to minimize the risk of known or reasonably foreseeable food safety hazards that may cause illness or injury if they are present in our food. So the next 3 slides, what I have done is I have highlighted some important information related to our food inspections, commercial food inspections. Subpart B of 21 CFR 117 applies to all retail and wholesale operations. Some or all subparts of 21 CFR 117 may apply to wholesale operations. Depending on the type of the product, additional regulations may apply. So there are some product-specific regulations like juice, seafood, acidified food, your sauces and condiments, low-acid canned foods, and bottled water. Reiterating that establishing risk-based preventive controls enables a proactive and systematic approach to food safety. So instead of reacting to an illness or outbreak, it makes sense to take steps to prevent that from happening. Ingredients should come from approved suppliers to ensure a safe and wholesome finished product. This is so important. Ingredients are actually held to the same safety standards as the finished product. So there must be reasonable certainty that, under the conditions of using the ingredient, it does not harm the consumers. So, we don't want heavy metals in our spices, right? We don't want lead in our peppers or cinnamon. We don't want patchouli in our apples. We don't want arsenic in our rice. And we don't want aflatoxins in our peanuts and corn. So it's so important that ingredients must be safe to produce a safe finished product. Now, food additives are also ingredients, and with regards to food additives, they have to have that GRAS status. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that, but GRAS stands for generally recognized as safe. So there are some people who will reach out to us and they will have some ingredients that we feel like, we must look up the FDA website and see if it really has GRAS status or not, or has it been approved or pre-authorized by FDA to be used as ingredients. But the overall thing is safe ingredients leads to safe finished product. Commercial food facilities must have a separate hand washing sink in addition to utility sinks, preferably in the processing area. So this is where it's a little bit different from your home processor kitchens, right? Because they don't need this. And 21 CFR 117 simply states that hand washing facilities must be adequate, convenient, and furnish running water at a suitable temperature. The next one says, low risk and high risk foods can be made and sold in state, in North Carolina, or out of state. So again, compared to a home processor operation, they are only allowed to make low risk products. This is a big advantage if you have your own commercial kitchen or you rent space in a commercial kitchen, that you can make all kinds of products and sell them wherever you want. Once your inspection is completed and you are operating in compliance, those are the requirements though. No commercial grade appliances or equipment needed. Well, that is a very big thing I have seen in my experience, that, the county health department inspections are very stringent. They have very strict guidelines and regulations. And we get calls like, can we actually be under your jurisdiction so that, we don't have to have commercial grade appliances. So that is, not a requirement. And if the products are under our jurisdiction, commercial grade sinks and stovetops and refrigerators are not a requirement. Some shelf-stable products may require further evaluation for safety. Sure, if you claim that your sauce product or your condiments or your dressings, they can be stored in the pantry, well, you have to provide us some evidence of that. And so when we have our discussions, we tell them, please reach out to a process authority and get a letter that specifies that, their process authority. So they will have scientific evidence that your product indeed is safe while it is being stored at ambient temperatures. Manufacturers of low acid and canned foods and acidified foods, they have to meet additional requirements. So it's not just the 21 CFR 117 here. And not just the trainings that they have to take, because these foods are very high risk and they have to be manufactured under the supervision of a person who knows what they are doing. And so that is where the training is important. It's imperative. And the second thing is that they actually have to file the scheduled process for each product, for each package size. They have to file it with FDA. Wholesale seafood and juice manufacturers must be HACCP trained. So keep in mind, just a general HACCP training will not work. We need to see certificates of seafood HACCP if you have a seafood operation, and juice HACCP if you have a juice HACCP certificate if you have a juice operation, a wholesale juice operation. Ice cream, butter, and cheese. These are routinely inspected by us, and they are licensed by us. The licenses are renewed every year in the month of July. So, sale of raw milk for human consumption is prohibited in North Carolina. And we've had a couple of complaints where, we found people selling raw milk at farmers markets. So it is prohibited for human consumption. However, it can be sold as pet food, but for that, the person has to contact the feed department and comply with their requirements, their registration requirements, as well as any inspection protocol that they have to be subject to. Raw milk haulers are given a test and license prior to hauling. So if you know you're a cheese manufacturer and you need to buy raw milk and pasteurize to make fresh cheeses, you really can't just transport it. You really have to be a licensed raw milk hauler. And to be licensed, you need to first take a test. Food, dietary supplements, and drugs have different regulations and labeling requirements. So you can't take a drink powder mix, it has whey and other ingredients, food ingredients, but then you add ashwagandha, which is an herbal supplement, and then call it food because it's a drink mix. Ashwagandha is not an approved food additive. It does not have GRAS status, and it has not been approved by FDA to be used in food. So just be very careful that, there's no mix and match here. When it's food, they have their own regulations, dietary supplements have their own, and drugs too. So, for example, I also wanted to say, elderberry syrup. This was like the product of the year last year. We saw so many elderberry syrup products having dosage information, 1 to 2 teaspoons for children and two tablespoons for adults. Now that does not seem to be like a food product, right? The way it's advertised on the label. Also, we saw that on the websites, because we were strict about not that you shouldn't make any health claims or, that kind of thing. We still saw that they have it on their website, and the intended use of those products was to cure, mitigate, treat, or prevent a disease or a symptom of a disease like, cold and flu, even allergies. That is not allowed, even on, not just on your product label, but any labeling information, whether it's on social media, the firm's own websites, or any kind of brochures that they're distributing or advertising. You can't make those health claims for food products unless they are allowed. So, and that is where you come into the picture, and we discuss with you in details about your food or your dietary supplement. And then we guide you to go contact Board of Pharmacy if your products appears to be more drug-like. Product labels. When it comes to product labels, there are mandatory requirements like the name of the product, the net quantity of the contents, and that the quantity of contents has to be both in U.S. customary system as well as metric system. Ingredient list, and so the ingredients have to be listed by predominance of their weight, and the manufacturer's name and address. These are 4 mandatory requirements. Now, when it comes to nutrition information, if you're a small business, you can get the small business exemption. But if you're not, if you're a big, big manufacturer, then you have to have the nutrition label, nutrition facts label, or when you make claims like, excellent source of calcium or fat-free or reduced fat milk. So, for example, the same manufacturer of fluid milk, if he's making whole milk, he need not put the nutrition facts label because it is as is. But the minute he makes a health claim, and even an indirect health claim like reduced fat or 1% fat milk, right? Then now that is a health claim. So now he has to put the nutrition facts panel on those products. Lastly, a few words on allergen information. There are 9 allergens that must be stated, must be declared on food product labels. These are, let me see if I can remember them, wheat, milk, soy, peanuts, tree nuts, crustacean shellfish, fish, eggs, and sesame. Now, keep in mind, when it is tree nuts, you really have to specify the type of tree nuts, whether they're almonds, cashews, or walnuts. And the same thing applies to fish and crustacean shellfish, that you have to declare the species. So, for fish, is it salmon or tuna or cod or anchovies? Or for crustacean shellfish, is it crab or lobster or shrimp? So allergens has become a very big deal because there's so many product recalls because of misbranding due to allergen issues. So keep that in mind, that you are aware of the 9 allergens that have to be declared. Keep in mind they can be either listed in the ingredient list or in a contained statement underneath the ingredient list. I will not really go into more details regarding allergens because I know and Dr. Johnston and Kate have organized a full presentation on labeling and allergens. So with regards to product labels, please keep in mind there are some mandatory requirements, and like an advisory statement is just that. It's not mandatory, but it's optional. You may have seen it on labels like this product was made in a facility that handles peanuts. That's an advisory statement. So it's really up to you if you want to add that. But do keep in mind that there are certain things that must be on the product label. So what must a food entrepreneur do? So if you are a new North Carolina food manufacturer, or if you're already an established food manufacturer and planning to expand your business, or you are the owner of a warehouse, any food operation where you plan to sell foods for retail or wholesale, the first thing that you should do is contact our office and talk to a food compliance officer. So Kate had already given you this number, but this number is again on the slide. And then discuss your products, the applicable regulations, the labeling information, inspection process, and inspector information. So our inspectors are locally based, so it would be very important for you to give a call to our office and get that information. And we will send you all this information in an email. We don't give out inspector names and contact numbers over the phone. So you will actually receive emails from the food compliance officer after you have discussed your operation. So the next very important step would be to read the regulations and understand them and complete any required trainings and confirm which kitchen you are using. Go ahead and move forward with either renting the kitchen or setting up your own commercial kitchen, and prepare your product labels. Call the inspector a couple of weeks before and schedule your first inspection. And while you do any of the steps, even specifically the last step, if you run into issues and or some things are not clear to you, feel free to contact the food compliance officer or even the inspector prior to the inspection. Now, I have a piece of information, important information for the farmers market managers. And that is, you should confirm the inspection status of your vendors, and how would you do that? So, you want to make sure that they have been inspected by us. So you can request a copy of the observation sheet and notice of inspection. These two documents are always issued by our inspectors. So either they can furnish you a copy or you can contact the Food and Drug Protection Office, our office, and we will provide it to you. The owner or manager or person in charge of a shared use kitchen facility, incubator kitchen, I think it's called interchangeable use, or any other type of commercial kitchen, must contact our office and request an inspection. Keep in mind that all manufacturers and repackers who are using your facilities must also contact our office and request for an inspection individually for their food operation. And you will wonder, you might ask why. It's because they are liable to produce a safe product. The liability is on them. Partial liability of the facility maintenance is also on you as the owner or the PIC of your commercial kitchen. But, the manufacturers and repackers can't say that if the shared use kitchen facility has been inspected, they don't need an inspection. So it does not relieve them of that responsibility to comply with the regulations, get an inspection, and operate in a safe and wholesome manner. So I was given some questions prior to the presentation, and I will go ahead and answer them here. What types of records are most important for startups and small food processors to create, complete, and retain? So that depends on what regulations you are subject to. Your training, so 21 CFR 117 clearly states, one requirement is you have to be trained to do your job. So, and then you have to keep records of that training, So if you are a seafood processor, the HACCP requirements, they require you to keep records of temperatures, keep records of incoming ingredients, So it depends on the regulations that you will be following or you'll be subject to when making your product. What do I need to ensure that products from adjacent states are in compliance? Go ahead and ask them for evidence of a recent inspection, like an inspection, just like our observation sheet and notice of inspection, or some other document that says that they have been recently inspected. Can they sell at my market or store? Again, it depends, because food firms, these businesses, they are subject to the regulations and policies of their own state. So if their state allows them to sell products in interstate commerce, sure, they can sell in North Carolina too, because we allow, once you're inspected, then we allow you to sell products out of North Carolina. Then do they need to register in North Carolina or their home state? So I want to clarify, that we talked about FDA registration, right? That is different. North Carolina does not have a state registration requirement for manufacturing or selling foods. So I can't tell about other states. That may be something you can ask, or you can reach out to our office and we can help you research that. Lastly, what if inspection isn't required for their product in their state of business? This is a very good question. So I ran into an issue where this lady was from South Carolina and selling all her fermented foods in North Carolina. So she called to ask, maybe the farmers market manager asked her to contact us. And so she wanted to know what she has to do if she will get an inspection in North Carolina for selling the products. So I had to tell her, you will be inspected at the point of manufacturing your product, not at the point of selling. And she said that in South Carolina, the home processors are not inspected. So I had to research this a little bit more, and I found out that yes, they may not be inspected, but they are also not allowed to sell outside their premises. So really, you can't cross the interstate line and come to North Carolina and start selling your food products, because it is not allowed by their state. So that was something, I found out. So with regards to that answer, please contact our office so that we can discuss this subject matter. If there are people from other states selling products in our state. What do I need to do if I want to sell in another state or online? So in North Carolina, once you have been inspected and you have been found to operate in compliance, then yes, you are free to sell your products to other states or through online. Are there novel products that have higher risks or food safety implications and that NCDA is currently seeing an increase in? What an interesting question. So I just listed a few of the novel products that we have dealt with in recent times. Floral jellies. So, calendula and lavender and marigold, rose jellies. There are food safety implications because we asked the people to reach out to botany department, to plant industry, and in fact, we also heard back that for one of the flowers, I think the NC states asked them to contact poison control. So yes, it seems like it's not that easy to just go ahead, pluck those flowers, and make those jellies. This year, it seems like mushroom products have really taken over North Carolina because, we get a lot of calls related to mushroom products. And if they're culinary mushrooms, we're fine. But if they're foraged, that's a very difficult decision to even research this topic, because there are 5,000 species of mushrooms. And a lot of them look like culinary mushrooms, but they're not. They might be poisonous. So it takes longer to attend to these kind of products because yes, they do have food safety implications. Flour infused beverages, the same thing as floral jellies, infused apple cider vinegar. So this is like a very trendy thing going on where they are infusing the vinegars with peppers, different kinds of peppers and herbs like rosemary and thyme and basil, even rose petals. So that's a very new product for us, and we definitely feel there are food safety implications here. The same thing with flavored ghee. They are using so many herbs and cinnamon, and so we now, with the addition of such additives, it's hard to understand whether is it still a shelf stable product, or is it still a safe product. So there are some risks that we need to research more. CMOS products. So CMOS beverages apparently are very popular in the Caribbean, but when they give a call to us, we have realized that they buy their CMOS from Amazon. Now, how can you ensure the safety of ingredient from if you're buying it from a website platform, right? So we do encourage them, if this is the case, please contact your supplier, even if they are in the Caribbean, to give you a certificate of analysis that your ingredient is actually a safe ingredient. Fermented foods, definitely high risk, because we don't know. It's very difficult for, when the pH drops, to make it a safe product, how quickly the pH drops. So there's a little bit more scientific analysis that goes into the safety of fermented foods. Freeze-dried foods. This is very popular. And these products are very popular. So we don't have a concern if they take gummies and candies and freeze dry them, because they're already taking shelf stable products and then creating another shelf stable product. The problem is when they say, I'm going to take the fruits and veggies from my garden and I'm going to freeze dry them. So there we wonder about the food safety risks there, like, what is the uniformity in the pieces? What is the consistency there, that every piece will have a safe water activity, right? And ensure shelf stability. Foraged ingredients in foods. So I talked about foraged mushrooms, right? We don't know, they are plucking mushrooms in the wild and using them in certain foods. But I also ran into an issue when this gentleman called me and he said he wants to add foraged ingredients like twigs of sweet birch, spruce tips, stinging nettles, spice bush, twigs and berries, turkey tail mushrooms in ice cream. So we had to do research. We looked up, data sets on FDA website, and I had to specifically let him know that none of these ingredients that he was proposing, had GRAS status with FDA, or they were approved. None of them had prior authorization to be used as ingredients. So, we directed him to discuss with FDA any safety evidence that he had that, he could use these foraged ingredients in his ice cream products. So the second half of the question is, have you seen an increase? What products have you seen an increase in? So like I said, herbal teas, herbal teas, they have like a lot of, it has really caught on, and the food additives that they use, it takes us time to ensure that, they are safe. Mushroom products, of course, tinctures, juice blends with add-ons. I was happy when our juices just had pineapple and apple, in them. Now they are adding vitamins. So, that's another, we're getting more calls about different kinds of juice blends. What does a company need? I think I may be running out of time here. What does a company need to have prepared when calling the compliance officer to allow the process to go as smoothly as possible? So when you call and speak to a compliance officer, be ready to share the details of your products, your ingredients, your process, how you're going to process your finished product, as well as the location of your facility, because then, we will be able to direct you to your local food inspector. So if there are more food safety implications, we don't understand your product very clearly, then we will ask you to email us a complete list of your proposed products and the ingredients, as well as the process flow. Now, after you have done all the discussions, it is always followed by an email from the food compliance officer. And, the food compliance officer will send you information of labeling, the regulations, the inspector information, and any additional steps that you will require prior to starting your operation. Like if you're an acidified food manufacturer, you want to make sauces, two types of sauces, you get them classified. You have to send your products to a process authority and get your products classified, whether they are acidified foods or acid foods. And if they are acidified, now there are additional things that you have to complete, right? Your training, as well as file your scheduled process with FDA. So all that information is very important for you, and it will be given to you in writing. So that's a very good thing when you call us. When your setup is ready, then call the food inspector at least 2 weeks in advance, and then schedule the date and time of your inspection. So in order for the process to run smoothly at your end, please be open, transparent, and do communicate with NCDA. Safe egg production and safe egg handling. I will just wrap it up in 2 minutes. The shell egg producers, the larger ones that have more than 3,000 hens, laying hens, plus another requirement is not only you have to meet the minimum number of layers, but also you are wholesaling the eggs to sell as table eggs. At that point, you will be put under routine inspection, and it's called the SE rule, or Salmonella enteritidis rule, because Salmonella is the pertinent pathogen for eggs, shell eggs, and it's 21 CFR 118. Now, if you are a smaller operation, I have created a table and outlined that you will not be licensed by us. The eggs are required to be clean and wholesome, and there are refrigeration requirements for eggs that you have to, once they are laid, then you have to refrigerate them all the way through the supply chain at 45 degrees or below. And the eggs have to be labeled, so they have to have the name of the product, right? Eggs. And then how many? 12, 6, 18. And then the grade, if you've seen those cartons, they say A or AA, and the size, whether they're large or they're medium, but you may also have an exemption to the grading. And additionally, you have to have your packer and distributor's name and address. Now, new cartons are really not required, but if you are using old cartons, then you do have to scratch off any information that really does not pertain to the eggs that you are currently selling. So you really can't have Eggland's Best carton and say they are USDA graded. They are not, right? If you have not gotten your supply of eggs graded by USDA, then you will have to scratch that information off the carton. Invoice, again, record keeping, right? It is very important. It's a record. So the sale date, the name and address of both the seller and buyer must be on that invoice, and the number of eggs that were sold, the grade, and the size. Now, this is a regulatory thing that, if you sell less than 30 dozen eggs, you don't have to grade them, but you have to grade them if you advertise the price. And if you're selling more than 30 dozen eggs, they must be graded. But they are exempt from grading if you're selling them from your property. So just remember, only when you have more than 3,000 hens are you subject to an inspection. For the rest of the egg selling, part, we follow up if we get complaints. you know, the eggs were, all of them were spoiled or temperature abused or something like that. So unless we get a complaint, we really don't put you under routine inspections. But the second half of the question says safe egg handling. While both USDA and FDA have instructions on safe egg handling, again, target pathogen is Salmonella, and eggs gathered once they are laid, then they should be refrigerated as soon as possible. This is a US requirement. It does not happen in all countries. And after eggs are refrigerated, they need to stay that way. Our administrative code also specifically states that eggs shall be held at an ambient temperature of 45 or below Fahrenheit and transported at a refrigerated ambient temperature of 45 or below without freezing those eggs until they are sold to consumer or used in food prep. So those were the questions that you asked. I am going to ask you a couple of questions now. Who can tell me, put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself, which products are not under the inspection jurisdiction of Food and Drug Protection Division? Which products that you see here are not under our inspection? Maybe Kate, you can read if they have put in the chat because I can't see.
Yeah, I'll keep my eye on the chat for us.
Okay, so we would not, I don't know if you got any answer, but I'm just going to say it. We would not inspect pepperoni pizza, and we would not inspect meat products, because that would be USDA or Meat and Poultry Inspection Division, and for pizza, it would be the local county health department where it's being manufactured. Okay, let's see if you can guess this one. Which product will not be inspected, or products will not be inspected by our office? Anyone? Okay, so that would be fresh juices. So if they're freshly squeezed juice, you know, upon customer request, they're not bottled. They're being offered to you in, you know, as fresh juices to drink there, then that would again be county health department. So time to wrap up. Just want to say that when your food operation meets the regulatory requirements, you meet the basic standards of compliance, right? So you're good to go as long as you meet the regulations. If you plan to go above and beyond to ensure, you know, more food safety controls, that's great. But keep in mind, regulatory compliance is important because it protects your business, right? It warrants business stability and ensures safe food from the farm to the fork. And that's a wrap up.
Thank you so much, Minoo. We're going to pause